Welcome to This is Getting Old, moving towards an age-friendly world. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and today we're going to be talking about age-friendly and how we can end ageism in America. So I'm joined by Larry Samuel. Welcome, Larry. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So maybe before we get started, just introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you got interested in age-friendly work.
Okay. Again, I'm Larry Samuel, and I'm based mostly in Miami, which is where I am. And for the last, I'd say about 5 years of my career, I've been focusing on the aging space, partly because I'm aging. Well, we're all aging, but I found that people were kind of treating me differently once I hit 60. I just turned 65. I'm on Medicare. Congratulate me. So,
I was going to say.
last week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and this was sort of a surprise for me, a shock for me, because being a white male, I had a sense of privilege and never faced any sort of ism before. But I noticed just out and about that people were thinking and looking at me differently, and I realized that it was because of the way I appear. You know, it's just age happens. The biggest surprise to a man's life is getting old, Ben Kingsley said. And it's really true. It's sort of a surprise because you feel the same inside. You know, a lot of people talk about this, that basically you're the same person inside, but your exterior is different. And then people make judgments about your innerness based on your outerness. And that was sort of a surprise. So I found it very interesting, and I wanted to learn more about it. So I wrote my first book about aging in America, A Cultural History, because I am a historian. I've written a bunch of books about American cultural history. So I went after that, and I sort of traced the idea of aging and ageism in America. And it's really a 200-year-old story. You know, this is nothing new. The first native-born white Americans looked at the founding fathers' generation, the colonialists, in an ageist way. They felt they were out of touch. They were fuddy-duddies, and they wanted to reinvent America in their own way. So this goes back, I don't know how many generations that is, 12 or 15 generations, 200 years. So it's nothing new at all. So I wrote that book, and then I decided to write a second book about this called Boomers 3.0. And this is the idea that baby boomers like myself, I'm right in the sweet spot, are in their third active life, hence 3.0. You know, we did our 1.0 and our 2.0, now we're in 3.0, and they're different stages of life. And I felt that marketers weren't really getting this at all. They were either underrepresenting us or misrepresenting us. So that book was a platform for marketers to talk to people like myself. And then this book is, it's called Age Friendly. And the idea of age friendliness is being inclusive towards people of any age, whether they be workers or citizens or consumers. Those are my sort of three levels. I look at it very holistically. I think it all has to happen at the same time. And my goal is to contribute to ending ageism in America, which is where I began this whole process about 5 years ago. Because I just feel like there's a lot of work we can and should do as Americans to not tolerate any sort of ism based on a biological marker or a physical trait. And that's how I view age. It's just another physical trait like skin color or gender, and we should approach it through that lens.
And obviously you're talking to the choir. We're in the same boat on this. And both of us know that ageism is really the only ism that's basically absent from this national conversation. So I appreciate what you're doing to kind of elevate that voice. So, so let's talk a little bit about where ageism tends to pop up. You mentioned it, you know, just kind of out and about where people were treating you different. What are some other places? I mean, I know for myself, like I'm recently dating again and ageism in dating apps is like crazy town.
Okay.
People lying about their age. Either they'll say they're too young. You find them in one app, they're one age, they're 10 years younger in the next app. And it's like, okay, this is insane.
Yeah.
So what are some other areas that you see ageism popping up?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know about that, but I can imagine it's the same story. there's a lot, there are hundreds of us out there, the choir, as you say, which is great. And each of us has his or her own take on the matter, and it's all good. A lot of people are focusing on greeting cards for example, that greeting
Right.
cards are quite ageist. It's true. They're meant to be funny. I find them kind of funny, but they are ageist. And, so everyone is kind of picking their battle. I face it in daily life, just in terms of like going to the grocery store, and now they routinely ask me if I need help getting my bag, my cart to my car, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and we do rough and tumble, I'm throwing her in the air and she's tackling me, and this person is asking me if I need help to get my bag to the car. So I find that kind of strange. But I'm actually less interested in the daily life stuff, because a lot of people are covering that very well. They're all over that. And I'm all about work. I look at America is about money. I didn't make this, I don't like it, but that's the fact. All roads basically in America lead to money eventually. So for me, it's about work, the workplace, it's about jobs. And this is all backed up by a lot of research showing that if people have good jobs, are employed, and are making good wage and have benefits and everything, it has a trickle down effect or trickle across effect through society. So the economic sphere has a direct influence on the social sphere. You're going to be treated differently out there in the public if you have a good job and you're part of a multi-generational workforce. So I'm focusing on the workplace. I think that's the bottom line. I think human resources and the DEI folks should really lead the way here. And so that's where I'm really focusing my efforts. It's really up to them as the gatekeepers to corporate America or big business. It's much better in small businesses, but your Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, just look at the numbers in terms of their hiring. Are they hiring people 55 plus? We're half the population. But I would bet that if you looked at their hiring policies, you would find a very small percentage of new hires who are 55 plus. And I have to tell you that I do a little anthropological work as well in the field, and I apply for jobs that I really don't have much intention of taking, but I often apply for jobs because it's hard to document this without actually going through the process. So I only apply for jobs that I'm really well qualified for, that I would, probably get 30 years ago or 20 years ago. But I've probably applied for maybe 100 jobs, and guess how many interviews I've got? Just first round interviews.
2.
One.
Oh, okay, I was close.
Yeah, and even with a company that I had founded, I didn't get an interview. I founded a company
Wow.
20 years ago, and I applied for different, entry level, mid-level, director level, and not even a callback from a company that I had founded and sold. So there's definitely something on. It's not a coincidence. We're really not wanted in the workplace for all kinds of reasons that we could talk about. And so that answers your question. I'm all about the workplace and jobs.
Yeah. So actually, I think that the Boomers 3.0 book really was focused on how to be an age-friendly business and market to older consumers.
Yeah.
And I see your age-friendly work being more about how can we create age-friendly employers to build these intergenerational, to build an intergenerational workforce. So,
Right.
And you shared an interesting story in your book about Connecticut, which, to me, when you think about how digitized applying for a job is now, to have to disclose your date of birth and your age, it shouldn't be considered in the hiring process, just like gender and race shouldn't be either.
Right.
So, so what other things do you think we should be doing? I mean, it's obviously a responsibility for all Americans, but specifically, what are some ways that you think we could correct some of the injustices that are done with ageism?
Well, just by the way, analogous to your dating experience, I found myself taking off years off of my resume. I wasn't lying about my age, but like many people, I had to drop, the first 10 or 15 years off my career to make me appear younger to them. But they're very good at what they do. And they have these software bots, as you know, that can sort of detect language or sift out your age somehow based on, and I took off my college degree dates as well. But basically, I think we just have to start from the very beginning, that this is a very un-American idea. Okay, that's where we have to go with this. It is not democracy in action. You know, this is discrimination. This is not what we're about as a country at all. That's where we have to start. This is antithetical to who we're supposed to be. So I think if you come at it from that very large macro lens, it's an unsustainable, untenable proposition. It's just a bad idea to discriminate on anybody based on any physical attribute. So I think that's where you have to start. And I think also through the workplace, you know, these HR people and DEI people, they have codes of ethics, and there are rules and all kinds of things that they commit to when they become one of these people. But it doesn't seem that they're following their own industry guidelines in terms of not discriminating against a person based on their age. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they're not all that different from their predecessors of 25 years ago, who would not hire a woman because she was a woman, even though she was qualified, or 50 or 75 years ago, these managers who wouldn't hire a person based on their skin color. So I draw a direct line to those people and say, this is a basic human rights issue, and the United Nations agrees with that. They have stated that ageism is a human rights issue. It affects millions of people, tens of millions of people around the world, in all kinds of ways, financially, emotionally. There's all kinds of research saying that a job really contributes to your well-being, your psychic well-being, and your physical health. And so this is a serious topic, and I think we need to approach it through that lens, rather than, you know, he or she is 60 or 65 and he won't fit in well with other employees. You know, that it's not a cultural fit. You know, that's not a good defense of this, you know, if you look at it through that way.
Right. Well, and you know, there's always an intersection of these isms. So if you have race and gender with age, you know,
Yeah.
all those things get compounded together. And I think what most people don't understand is that ageism actually starts for women, you know, in their 40s.
Yes.
You know, maybe a little bit later for men, but that, you know, but it happens to them as well. So it's something that we're all going to be impacted by. And I think ageism's the only inclusive ism that we have, because we're all doing it.
Yeah, and the irony, it actually is that it is your future self that you're discriminating against. You know, I'm not going to change skin color and probably not become a woman, but you know, everybody is going to get old. So you're discriminating against your sort of future self, which is very strange to me.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people just don't think about aging in general, and there's still a lot of this us versus them approach.
Mm-hmm.
And ageism is actually the only ism that we tend to even self-impose.
Right.
You know, and so it does decrease your lifespan by about 7 years with just how you think about aging yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you think that getting old, you're supposed to, if you associate that with decline, that's what you're going to get. So,
Mm-hmm.
So what are some other steps that we can take to create a more age-friendly world?
Right. Well, I think education is key to, you know, because this is about fearing the other. You know, it just all comes back to that, and disliking the other for some other reason because they're different than you, and you have to set yourself apart from that. Part of it is physical. You know, in America, youth rules the day. Our standards of beauty are based heavily on youth. That's changing a bit, I think, for the better, that more people are coming around to the fact that older adults can be just as beautiful, which is a great thing. So that's a good sign. I like the idea. My intent with this book was to get into as many, in front of as many people as possible, especially within corporations, and try to talk about the myths and stereotypes that are embedded into ageism that really lie at the root of all this, and that go back 200 years, that we just don't know the truth about aging. And I'm a perfect example. I was probably ageist when I was 25 or 35. I remember there was a guy at my company who was my age now, and I wondered why he was hired, because he had white hair, and I was just like, this guy does not fit in. So I'm guilty of that. So I kind of understand the mentality that goes into that. But I really think you have to go right at the myths and stereotypes. And I'm a good example that I am a much happier, better person than I was. You know, my knees and hips might not have got the memo, but my demons of youth are gone. Wisdom truly does come through experience. I have to tell you, you know, this isn't my first rodeo. You've seen it before, and you gain a sense of judgment and perspective and context for everything, including the pandemic. Now, boomers like myself, we didn't freak out because we were in the 60s, you know, like I got drafted, you know, I thought that, you know, that was an issue, you know, like I was thinking about ways to get out of Vietnam. But so I think with that perspective and context, you make good decisions. And good decision making is essentially what business people do. So why would you not want these folks who have good judgment and can make good decisions, both in the short and long term, around? They would just blend in really well and complement younger folks, you know, the quote, digital natives.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, as human beings, we have the ability to learn from other people. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you a lot of the most influential people in my life were older. Yeah. Which benefited me as a younger person. And so I really think that's the benefit of having generations come together. And it's a reciprocal relationship, because if you're a digital native, you know, like my grandmother is 85, just got her first iPhone, you know, and then I go to visit her the next time, she's got a little pop button on the back, and I'm like, look at you. but she's learning how, you know, she knows how to do it. And she's like, here, show me how to, like, she wanted to get QVC. So I showed her how to download the app.
So
I'm
funny.
like,
yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? She's 85. She's still learning, you know, and then I can go talk to her about other stuff, and she can help me, you know, get a different perspective based on, you know, her life experience. So,
right. Yeah. I think we just need to define the idea of diversity better, because it seems to be narrowly interpreted what that means. And as you're saying, diversity includes people of different ages. And mm-hmm. So it makes sense that they be part of teams. They bring a different perspective. And every study that I've seen says that diversity of perspectives are a good thing, whether in business or in life. It's just good to get different opinions about any particular issue or subject.
Right. I think one of the studies you mentioned, only about 10% of companies have policies and procedures around ageism, but all of them have policies and procedures around, you know, gender and ethnicity. So
it's in theory, it is embedded within the DEI initiative. Age is mentioned. In practice, however, there's been a couple of studies that show 92% of even DEI people do not consider age as part of their mission. And so that's troubling when you have the people in charge of diversity and equity inclusion not really interested in 360-degree diversity, equity, inclusion. That's right. Trouble. That's troubling. These are the folks that are supposed to be leading the way. So
and I'm the one that always has to go, don't forget about ageism. Don't forget about ageism.
Okay.
You know?
Right. Yeah, so I think it would be good to embed ageism more within that movement, the DEI movement. And it's a huge thing. You know, it's so many businesses are embracing this idea. And it's a shame that age is not addressed equally as some of the other criteria.
All right. Well, you're going to be joining us this year for our 2021 AARP Age Friendly Social Innovation Challenge, where we're going to be developing some moonshot ideas of what we're going to need over the next 25 years. Because if you're born in 1995 or earlier, I think that means you're part of the millennial generation. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they started turning 40 this year. So 25 years from now, they're going to be 65. So, you know, I think engaging the millennials, you know, actually all generations need to be engaged in this, but we'll be doing some regional work to brainstorm. So we're looking forward to having you join us for that. Any
Great.
final words? We recommend that you get his book, Age Friendly, Ending Ageism in America. It's a great
Mhm.
read, and has a lot of great ideas. So anything else you'd like to add before we finish up?
I think just more generally that aging is suffering from an image problem. So I would love to see some kind of public service advertising where people of age, which I love that idea that we're not called seniors or elderly, but people of age, maybe who are famous celebrities, rock stars. There's a lot of 70-year-old rock stars right now. Really talk about aging the way it is, because it's a positive experience. It's not a negative experience. The whole anti-aging industry is not helping matters at all, because they're reinforcing the idea that aging is a negative experience that we should try to delay or avoid totally. I believe we should embrace it because I believe it's a good thing. So I think it would be great to have some kind of ad campaign that is like, aging, it's a good thing, with Steve Tyler or Paul McCartney, somebody who can endorse it that way. So that's my recommendation of the day.
Well, I'd be happy to help you work on that one.
Okay,
So,
let's do it.
all right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And that's that.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and if you'd like to learn more, you can check out my other episodes on my YouTube channel by subscribing and ringing the bell to get immediate notifications when new content comes out. In addition, you can also find the audio version of the podcast on Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Please feel free to leave an honest review, because more reviews mean more awareness of the podcast and helps us move towards an age-friendly world. If you have a comment or a question, you can visit my website, melissabphd.com. Go to the Contact Melissa tab, and you can leave me a voice message. You never know, it might just include your question or your comment in an upcoming episode.